When you stare blankly into space, do you actually know what your brain is trying to do? Yes, people think it's just laziness, brain fog, or a complete lack of focus. But behind that simple, sometimes annoying habit, there's something deeper that most people miss. It's actually one of the most fascinating, protective things your nervous system can do. And if you misunderstand it, try to force it to stop or ignore it, which most people do, you might burn out your nervous system and miss a critical warning sign. Let's start with what staring blankly really means. Have you ever been in the middle of a busy day, reading the exact same sentence on your computer screen for the fourth time, and suddenly you realize you are just staring at the wall? Your eyes are wide open. The world is moving around you, but you aren't really seeing anything. The background noise fades into a hum. You are physically there, but mentally, you have completely left the room. Then, someone calls your name. You quickly shake your head, blink a few times, and feel a sudden, heavy wave of guilt for wasting time. Society has conditioned us to believe a very specific narrative about productivity. We live in a hustle culture that demands constant, unbroken attention. Because of this, most people think staring blankly is a symptom of a failing mind. They assume you are zoning out, losing your edge, or that your brain is simply shutting down because you lack discipline. But here's what's actually happening. Your brain is not shutting down. It is violently shifting gears. When you are overwhelmed by external data, emails, conversations, bright lights, and digital notifications, your neurological baseline reaches a critical threshold. To prevent your cognitive centers from literally crashing under the weight of this information, your nervous system temporarily unplugs your visual cortex from the outside world. It creates a physical pause to generate a massive internal reboot. You aren't broken and you aren't lazy. Your body is literally fighting to keep your mind intact. Think about that for a second. Your brain is intentionally blinding you to the outside world so it can clean up the chaos on the inside. And by the way, if you ever find yourself staring blankly so often that you lose large chunks of time and feel physically unable to snap out of it, don't brush it off. We'll get to what that really means at the end, and it's something most people wish they had understood sooner. To truly understand this, we have to look at the hard data. A landmark 2001 study from Washington University completely changed how neuroscientists view the resting brain. For decades, doctors and scientists assumed that when you stared blankly and stopped focusing on a specific task, your brain activity simply dropped. They thought the brain went to sleep. But advanced brain imaging studies revealed the exact opposite. The researchers discovered that the exact moment you stop focusing on the outside world, a massive, highly connected web of neurons lights up like a major city at night. Neuroscientists call this the default mode network, or the DMN. What makes this even more powerful is what it means for you. When you stare blankly, you are subconsciously activating an invisible supercomputer. Your brain recognizes a data bottleneck and sends an emergency signal to stop taking in new information. Instead, it turns its massive processing power inward. It starts connecting old memories, processing complex emotional interactions you had earlier in the day, and solving problems in the background. Your brain is actually working harder and burning more metabolic energy when you are staring at nothing than when you are actively trying to focus on a spreadsheet. This reveals a nervous system that is highly attuned, refusing to let your daily experiences go unprocessed. But how exactly does staring at a wall translate into a recovered, calmer mind? Here's where the neuroscience gets fascinating. When you let your eyes glaze over and your vision blur, you are tapping into your brain's secret pharmacy. Intense focus requires your brain to operate in beta waves, fast, high-energy electrical frequencies that cause a steady buildup of cortisol and adrenaline. These are the neurochemicals responsible for stress, alertness, and survival. When those levels stay too high for too long, you feel mental fatigue. You feel paralyzed. Your brain literally fills up with metabolic waste products. By staring blankly, you are forcing your brain waves to slow down into the alpha and sometimes even theta state. You are self-medicating without taking a single pill. It is a chemical survival tactic. This shift in brainwaves acts as a biological flush, clearing out the toxic buildup of stress hormones and resetting your dopamine receptors. Your nervous system is manufacturing the exact chemical environment you need to survive a modern, overwhelming day. And hey, if this makes sense to you, hit like and subscribe. It helps us reach more people who actually want to understand what their brain is secretly doing. To really grasp why your body does this, we have to look backward, hundreds of thousands of years backward. Evolutionary biologists have observed that the human body was never designed to process the relentless, high-definition stimulation we face today. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors lived in a world of acute, physical threats, but they couldn't just close their eyes and fall asleep every time their brains needed a break from tracking prey or navigating the wilderness. Closing your eyes in the wild meant death. You would be eaten. So our nervous systems evolved a brilliant compromise: open eye rest, vigilant dissociation. When you sit perfectly still, staring blankly at your computer screen or out the window of a train, your primal brain is executing an ancient protocol. To your ancient nervous system, this is the only safe way to rest while remaining visually aware of your surroundings. Here's what society gets wrong about this. Staring blankly is an evolutionary ghost. It is your ancient survival instinct adapting to the modern world. Your brain is saying, we need to recover our energy, but we must keep our eyes open to watch for predators. It is a brilliant biological workaround to keep a body built for the wilderness functioning inside a high-pressure digital world. This explains exactly why this habit only triggers in very specific contexts. Have you ever noticed that you do not stare blankly when you are engaged in a passionate conversation or when you are learning something genuinely thrilling? You only stare blankly when you are trapped in the cognitive overload zone. After a 3-hour meeting that could have been an email, during a monotonous commute surrounded by strangers, or right after a highly emotional argument where you had to suppress your true feelings. Your brain requires a physical release valve for cognitive pressure. When the outside world demands that you keep processing data, your internal world must pull the plug. You aren't just zoning out. You are highly attuned to your environment, and your nervous system is actively compensating for the invisible weight of information you are carrying. You are balancing the scale. Think about that for a second. You only do this when your mind is full to the brim and trying to hold your world together. And there is a hidden benefit to this overload protocol. Have you ever wondered why your best ideas come to you when you are staring blankly in the shower or looking out a window? Because the default mode network isn't just a cleanup crew, it is a creativity incubator. When you stop forcing your brain to focus on one narrow problem, it begins to cross-reference data from different parts of your life. It connects a conversation you had years ago with a problem you are facing today. Staring blankly is the exact neurological state required for eureka moments. Your blank stare is the ultimate proof that your brain refuses to let information go to waste. When faced with overwhelming emotional or cognitive data, a lesser brain would simply delete it. It would forget the details, react impulsively, or completely disengage from reality. But not yours. Your brain found a loophole. It recruited your visual system to pause the outside world so it could organize the inside world. This is what society gets completely wrong about you. This habit isn't a sign of a slow or distracted mind. It is the hallmark of a highly efficient, fiercely intelligent nervous system that will do whatever it takes to process your life deeply and protect your mental clarity. Remember earlier when I said that losing large chunks of time to a blank stare is a warning sign? This is what I was talking about. While a temporary blank stare is a superpower for cognitive recovery, there is a dark side. If you find that you are staring blankly for hours, feeling completely detached from your body, or you have an irresistible urge to mentally leave the room during minor conflicts, you are no longer dealing with a simple brain reboot. Neuroscientists and psychologists recognize this as dissociation or a chronic freeze response, and it is a massive red flag from your body. When the behavior becomes extreme and involuntary, it is often a sign of severe emotional trauma, a dysfunction in your stress regulation pathways, or chronic nervous system burnout. Your brain is no longer just resting. It is playing dead because it feels entirely unsafe. If your coping mechanism is causing you to lose touch with reality, your brain is sounding an alarm. Listen to your body. You need to manually signal to your primal brain that the threat is over. When you catch yourself frozen in a dissociative stare, practice the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method to pull your sensory system back to the present. Name 5 things you can see around you. For things you can physically feel, like the chair beneath you. 3 things you can hear. 2 things you can smell. And 1 thing you you can taste. This forces your brain out of the default mode network and back into the present moment safely. Engage in deep vagus nerve breathing. Give your brain permission to feel safe in the real world again. So, when you stare blankly into space, do you actually know what your brain is trying to do? It isn't just a lack of focus. It isn't a sign that you are too lazy to pay attention. That's not a weird cognitive glitch. That's your brain protecting you. That's evolutionary brilliance, keeping a primal survivor sane and organized in a modern, overwhelming world. And that simple habit, it was never a flaw. It's your mind working perfectly, and you should never feel guilty for it.